In this video, I will be going over talents and glyphs to get into Arena, what abilities you should be using, your stat priority, and then some example games where you can see it all come together. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with the talents and glyphs selection. In your first tier, you can pick Speed of Light is generally what you want to go with by default. I like to use Long Arm sometimes. When they're training you, it gives you a more consistent speed boost. Every 6 seconds you can use Judgment, but if you just want a button that'll get you out of there real quick, you can default Speed of Light, and it's really good. In your second tier, you almost always go Fist of Justice for that shorter stun cooldown. It's very useful. In some comps you might try Repentance, but it can put you in a really bad position because you have to push forward because the range is rather short on it. And Blinding Light you can use sparingly, again, against melee comps that train you really hard, and you know the game's going to be very short, so that just that extra CC. But the problem is it's on a 2-minute cooldown, it's very long, and it breaks to any damage, so. Generally a Fist of Justice. In this third tier, always go Sacred Shield. The problem with the other two is that they give you dispellable buffs, and in this current meta, there are a lot of comps and classes that have offensive dispels, and so you don't want to give them free buffs or just lose out on your own. So Sacred Shield just gives you that option of a buff that can't be stolen. The shield it puts on can be, but the buff that puts the shield on is not dispellable. In your fourth tier, you generally will go Clemency, so you get extra hands, freedoms, sacrifices, and so on, and protections. But depending on certain comps, especially against Affliction Warlock teams, you can go Hand of Purity, which gives you a 30-second huge cooldown against dot damage, and it can be really good coupled with Beacon of Faith, which we'll go over in a second. But in general, Clemency is a safe default choice. In the next tier, Sanctified Wrath is pretty much your only choice. The other two give you more Holy Power, which basically gives you, as we'll discuss later, more Word of Glories, but that's a casted spell, and you already have a lot of trouble dodging spells, dodge interrupts on your spells. So Sanctified Wrath for this bigger wings as a cooldown, and it gives you more Holy Shock during that time, which is really important. Alright, and then in this tier, tier 90, always pretty much Execution Sentence. Light's Hammer is not good because you're moving around a lot, so that ground AoE is not so good. Some people like to play Holy Prism against cleave comps, dot comps, where there's a lot of dot damage, but in general, Execution Sentence, a pretty safe go-to. It's a big heal, especially coupled with wings. It could pretty much top somebody off from nothing, so it's always a really safe choice. You can try Holy Prism now and then, but I do prefer Execution Sentence. And then in the last tier, tier 7 talents, they got Saved by the Light. Again, in general you can default this, but against that dot comp or a split pressure comp, like a really, really high split pressure comp, where they don't have that much burst on one target, you can go Beacon of Faith to split the healing and help you out, and it will help you do a lot of healing to your entire 3's comp, your 3's team. But Saved by the Light puts a shield on either you or your beacon target, or both of them rather, when they go below health, and it's really helpful for saving when you're in CC and you can't actually heal them. So those are the talents that I like to choose. As for glyphs, I generally always, obviously the minor glyphs you can have whatever you want, and they don't affect your gameplay at all. Definitely Glyph of Merciful Wrath is generally default that I use. It makes your wings a 1.5 minute cooldown rather than a 3-minute cooldown, which gives you access to that more often. It does cut the effect in half, so it's not as powerful, but in general, even that wing is enough to keep your team up when you need it. You can take this out if you know, again, that your game's going to be very short and they'll be training one target, and the game won't last more than 1.5 minutes when you would get your second wings. Examples would be melee cleaves that want to train you down, and it's a race basically between them and your team and their team, and you won't get to that 1.5 minute mark. Then you could remove it so you can have bigger wings, but in general this is a really good glyph. Glyph of Denounce I always have. Every time you Holy Shock you get a faster Denounce, and Denounce is really, really important for PvP. So always this one, I would argue. And then I default Glyph of Divine Protection for the physical damage reduction instead of the full magic, but of course if you're playing against a caster team you want to remove this. And other glyphs you can use are Cleanse, if you need more dispels. Double Dispel could be really useful. Diva, or if again you know that they're specifically going to be attacking you. But I don't use this too often. Or Hand of Freedom sometimes, again, if they're training you, or if you think you can get it off, if you know you can pre-predict the CC coming in, because it no longer is usable while stunned. So, alright, so that's it for talents and glyphs. Now onto the spells that we actually use in PvP. Your bread and butter spell is Holy Shock, and you want to use this off cooldown as often as you can. It's a small heal, and it gives you 1 holy power on use. And if you crit with it, you get a proc, which either makes your Holy Light, which is your most used other spell, a much faster cast, 1.7, or in this case 0.7 seconds rather than 1.8 seconds, which makes it easier for you to get that cast off without being kicked or interrupted on it. Or you can use it to buff your Flash of Light, which, when I get a proc here, is another spell you can use, and you really only use Flash of Light if you want a really big heal with this proc, or you need to spam heals on someone. So on the Flash of Light, it makes it 50% bigger. Most of the time you don't want to use it, it's not as efficient spell-wise, and it is slower than the buffed Holy Light. So it's a 1.1 second cast versus, when I get it, the buffed Holy Light being 0.7 seconds, right here. Okay. So those are your 3 main holy power builders, and then your spammable heals. As for what you do with the holy power, you want to use it. There's only one spell you use it on, and it's Word of Glory. It's a decent sized heal, so it's about 30k. It's not the biggest heal, but what it does with the 4-piece PvP set, every holy power you spend on it, up to 3, reduces the damage the target takes by 5% per power. So if you use a full 3 power Word of Glory, then you're reducing the damage your target takes by 15% for 6 seconds, which is really good and really important for countering burst. Other spells you have your Execution Sentence as a heal, which you will tend to couple with your Avenging Wrath, which is one of your biggest cooldowns that you want to use. And so it's a 1-minute cooldown, and it heals a lot, and it heals most of its healing in the initial amount, so it can get dispelled, but it's still a big amount. So if you pop Wings, an Execution Sentence, you see that without critting, that was 116k. Which is really big and really important. As well, you want to use your tier 4 talent, Sacred Shield. Generally have that up on as many targets as you can. It's not as big a priority as if someone's really low. You don't want to, not use another heal like a buffed Holy Light or Flash of Light or Execution Sentence, but you do want to have it running, so it's just a little extra absorb that keeps proccing every few seconds and putting in your shield that lasts for a few seconds. Okay. And then we have some of the more offensive Holy Pally abilities. The really important one is Denounce. Now a lot of people might think it's just a DPS, and it is. You can use it to help DPS. But what else does is it prevents the target that gets hit with this debuff. It prevents them from critting for the duration of the debuff. So they can't crit while it's up, so that helps reduce damage, of course. But it also, with the Holy Pally 2 set, it gives you 100% of the crit strike chance for 12 seconds. So it actually buffs you as well, and it makes you crit a lot more. Obviously on dummy it doesn't have any crit, so it won't give me that buff. But it's a buff called, I don't remember anymore. I'm blanking on it. But it's that buff will keep you critting on your Holy Lights, which will give you more procs, which helps you survive better. So it's really important to always have that buff up. Okay, and then we have, of course, your defensive dispel, which you use to dispel magic, and Pallies also, your cleanse can get rid of poison and disease. So make sure you say that to break people out of CC, or if there's like a lot of dots on, and so forth. And of course you have your Beacon of Light, which you want to put on a target, typically not yourself, because again, Saved by the Light already procs on you, even if you don't have a beacon. And so you want it on someone else, so that your teammate, if they get low, can proc a shield, which can save them a lot of the time. As far as cooldowns, you have a couple defensives. Your first one is Divine Protection. Now, base, this is a 1 minute cooldown. You can talent it to be shorter, but most of the time you don't want to. And it reduces the magical damage you take by 40% for 8 seconds. Or if you glyph it, it's a 20% reduction to physical and magic. So it's a small cooldown, comparable to a Druid's Barkskin. And you want to use it whenever you're taking extra damage, and you just need to cut that down on yourself. Okay, then you have Devotion Aura, which gives you protection on your spellcast, you and your party. It also reduces the damage you take by 20%, so it's also got the same damage reduction as Divine Protection, but it's for your whole party, plus all your spellcasts during that time are uninterruptible. So you can spam cast away, and they cannot interrupt you. They can CC you, they can fear you, they can stun you, and they can knock you back and so forth, but they cannot interrupt you and they cannot silence you. You can also use this while you're silenced, so sometimes it's a good way, say if a DK strangulates you and puts a blanket silence on you, you can use it to break that without having to use your trinket, your PvP trinket. Yeah, and then you have several hands, Hands of Freedom, Sack, and Protection that are good, they're really useful. Hand of Freedom removes all snares and slows and so on whoever you cast it on, and gives you immunity to that for 6 seconds. So if you need to run or just break any slows to get around corners or to chase people around pillars and so on, you want to use Hand of Freedom. You have Hand of Sacrifice. It's on a 1.5 minute cooldown, or 2 minute cooldown, excuse me. 1.5 is a ret. A 2 minute cooldown. And that reduces the damage the target takes by 30%, so it's a defensive cooldown, but in PvP, you can also use it to break CC, so we don't glyph it like you do in PvE, because you want to take the damage sometimes. So say you see a mage is coming towards you and he was trying to polymorph you. See him cast it, maybe you put Hand of Sacrifice on the target that they're attacking, so you get polymorphed, but then that sacrifice, they're taking damage, and when they take damage, it breaks that CC on you. So you can use it to prevent long CC chains sometimes, or you can use it as a damage reduction. Do be aware that it does push damage onto you as well, though. And finally, you have Hand of Protection, and this puts a shield on somebody, and it prevents you from doing any physical attacks, and also prevents all physical damage. Now, Hand of Protection can be dispelled, either through something like Mass Dispel or just regular offensive dispels, and it doesn't do anything against magic damage. And if you have a melee on your team and you use it, you should make sure to tell them, because it'll prevent them from attacking until they take it off, or if they use certain abilities. It does put all these, the big hand here, it does put a debuff on you called Forbearance, which prevents you from using Divine Shield, which we'll get to in just a second, or Hand of Protection for 30 seconds. So even after it's gone, you can't, see I have another charge, but I can't use it on myself because I have this debuff. And then your last big defensive cooldown is Divine Shield, which is for you. It's a 5 minute cooldown base, and it removes everything off of you. All debuffs, all everything, and makes you immune for 8 seconds. You do 50% less damage, but as a healer, it's not too big a deal. And you can use it as kind of that oh crap button, I'm in deep trouble, and you can use it to free cast and do everything, because it can't do anything to you. The only spells that can break it are Mass Dispel if it is glyphed by a priest, or Shattering Throw if it's glyphed by a warrior. Holy Paladins also have a pretty good offensive toolkit. So we discussed this in Ounce already, which is both offensive and defensive, since it gives you that crit buff. You can use Holy Shock offensively if you're very confident that you're okay. It does a fair amount of damage, 14k. I'm in arenas will do a little more because your eye level will be higher, but I can crit for maybe 25k, and that's not huge, but it's enough to sometimes push someone over. And you also have Hammer of Wrath, which is just an execute. You can use it below 20% health, and it's just a 4-second cooldown, short attack that you can use to help secure a kill sometimes. But I don't prioritize it over healing your team, keeping them active, up, and aggressive. Right, and then as far as CC goes, you just have the one by default, which is the stun, which I have talented here. You can also pick up these other two in that tier if you want, but again, generally the 30-second stun at range is really good, and it's a very long stun, 6 seconds. So you can coordinate with your team, use that to secure kills, and so on. And you, as a pally, you do have a kick and interrupt. It's melee range, so it's kind of dangerous to use sometimes. But if someone's casting on you or near you, you can run up to them and you can interrupt them. And it's, a lot of times people, especially when you're just starting out, they don't really think of the healer as an interrupter, so they don't pay attention to you when you're right there. But you can interrupt stuff, and sometimes that wins games. Right. And then you have Judgment, which isn't really so much for damage. I don't normally use it unless you take Long Arm of the Law again, because that procs your movement speed buff. And sometimes that can be really good, but if you don't take Long Arm of the Law, then don't use Judgment. And as far as buffs go, you have two. You've got Blessing of Kings and Blessing of Might. If for yourself, Blessing of Might I prefer to use. I do like Mastery a little bit, which gives you an extra shield. But you know, it depends on your comp what they bring. So if you're playing, for example, with a shaman, they bring a mastery buff already, so you're gonna buff kings. So just buff whatever your team needs the most, and go with that. All right. Now, as far as the stat priority, Holy Paladins, their preference is haste mostly. That's your top stat, and then after generally crit or mastery. Crit again, when you crit with your Holy Shock, you get procs. And the more procs you get, the better you can heal, the faster you can heal, and the bigger your heals are. Haste is really important because, again, your heals actually don't heal that much. So, for example, my flash heal is doing 30k, just under 30k on this dummy. And it's pretty tough to get these casts off in Arena because people are trying to interrupt you or CC you and so on. A lot of other healers have bigger instant casts that, you know, make it easier to keep their team up. And so you want to make it as fast as possible so there's a lower chance that you get interrupted on your casts. Everything else, so you prioritize haste. You can see this is the setup I have. Let's go over the pieces really, just a couple seconds on each so you know which ones they are. Mostly the 4 set that have haste or crit on them. Anything with haste is pretty much what you want. So the belt here I have crit haste, tier pants. The boots I chose haste verse, you know, helps in PvP. Not maybe the top prioritized stat for Holy Paladins, but the haste is on it, so that is why we went with that, because there are no other haste boots. And then we've got a haste spirit ring, crit haste, and then the 2 trinkets. Now right now I have the unused trinket because I just macro it into the execution since they share the same cooldown, 1 minute. And I won this, I don't remember when, somewhere, and I won from Ashran, but it's a haste spirit. And you could, you know, if you don't get that, you could always use the proc trinket, the Insignia of Dominance, that is base versatility and procs intellect or something along those lines. And then the 2 weapons, the crit mastery, and then the haste multi-shield. Alright, and so now I'm just going to go and queue for a skirmish of 2s, and just to kind of show you how all this plays out when you actually go into a game. Oh wait, no, unqueue, make sure I queue as healer. Alright. Okay, so it's kind of a silly team. But, so I want to be denouncing probably the rogue. Agility classes have a lot of crit typically. 1 guy left, that's fine. So make sure at the start you give a buff to everyone, put a beacon on someone. For me, I like to have a focus setup so you can do focus stuns, focus denounces, things like that. Again, not completely necessary. It's up to your style, how you want to play that. Now obviously this is a 2v3 now, but let's kind of give you an idea of how things go. So you don't want to put Sacred Shields up before because the game takes them off as soon as the gates open, so just start by getting buffs out, and then as soon as the gates go, you can start. So, come out the gate here, we're not going to go in that hard. So I'm going to start Holy Shock, build some Holy Power, get Sacred Shields out on both of us. Okay, build Holy Power and your Mastery. Oops, I got kicked here. But your Mastery will build shields, so we'll use that. So I'm silenced here. Alright, gonna freedom myself, run away. I'm gonna NS myself here. That's Execution Sentence with Wings. Pop Divine Protection because I'm getting hurt pretty badly here. And maybe a Devo this Silence so I can cast. And then just top myself up really quick. And also heal his pet. And I'll heal him now. So I'm putting Sacred Shield up. I'll try to bait a... Oh, he's already kicked, so I don't have to bait that. Alright. Alright, denounce the rogue, stun the rogue. And here I'm probably going to have to bubble, because I don't want to die. So I want to keep up this denounce on the rogue, so I keep my crit buff. So every time I'm casting, I'm basically critting. And it's Absolution is the name of the buff here. And for him, since he's got 2 melee, I'm going to use Hand of Protection. So he doesn't die. I'll give him a little more room to breathe here. And I'm stunning and a trinket that. And I have Execution Sentence again, so I'll use that. I'll stun the rogue. Friend some damage. Bait the kick here. Alright, got Divine Protection up again. So now I want to get away, so I'll freedom myself. And I'll judge someone so I can run faster. He's gripping me back. Alright, I'm kicked here and I'm probably going to die. Alright. I'll go ahead and leave this. And... let's sleep right now. And maybe get a Tooth game where we can last a little longer and get to use a couple more of our abilities. Okay, so again, Mastery. I know rogues like Mastery in general. I'm not sure what spec he has. Let's see. He's Subtlety, so he definitely does. Get a beacon up on him. Oops, that's on me. A beacon on him. Again, so good targets for denounces. Generally, any class that prioritizes it. Agi classes have a lot because agility gives crit baseline. And yep. And off we go. So a rogue has mass stealth. So if he uses it here, I don't want to start casting right away because I don't want to give away our position. But that's a compositional thing you'll find. But he found us, so I'll go ahead and I see he has a debuff, so I'll dispel that. And he's on me, so I put shields up and get Holy Shocks. Now I'm going to start denouncing him, so he can't crit. Plus, I get lots of crits. Alright, so just denounce him. Maybe, oh, stunned. So I don't see myself in too much danger, so I'll just sit here. I see he's done his Incarnation, which is a lot of damage. So I'm a little scared, so I'll go ahead and stun the healer here. I'm keeping him denounced. Stun briefly, and now just Wings and Execution Sentence. And just keep him denounced the whole time. Now he hasn't interrupted yet, so that is good. I'll freedom the rogue because I saw he got rooted there. And so now he can chase whoever he wants. And just keeping this... I kind of want to keep this Feral in the open a little bit, just so I'm not moving too much. Bring him here, and get myself freedom so I can come in and get a stun on this healer, and help the rogue maybe push down a little bit. And as you see, every time I Holy Shock, I get more, I get a faster denounce, and that helps you so you don't get interrupted while you're trying to denounce to, you know, to lower their crit and or give yourself more crit. So at this point I'm taking damage. Go ahead and Divine Protection. Maybe try to bait the kick out with Word of Glory. A lot of people like to try to kick that. Alright, denounce him real quick. Stun the healer. Freedom. Oh, I got kicked there. Alright. Freedom on our rogue friend here. I will Execution Sentence. I didn't have wings for that, but sometimes you just have to do it. Because you need that heal, even if it's not as big. I get kicked again, which is bad. So the Save by Light just procced on me, but I know he can't kick me anymore, so he's going to Typhoon and try to stop that. I have wings now, so I'm going to pop wings just to help heal myself. I'll just stun the DPS, because the rogue is only healer. I'm stunning and a trinket this one, so I can make more use of my wings. Alright, and try to bait out a kick here. I also denounce the healer now, so he can't crit. Now, Restless Jews don't crit that much, but it's still always helpful to prevent that when possible. Okay, get a little freedom on this rogue so there's no slows. Get a stun on him on that clone, stop his CC. Dispel Fairy Fire. Because we want the rogue to be able to stealth. He's getting clone, I can't do anything about that. So I'm too far, but if I could try to interrupt it. But I am a little too far. I'll go ahead and freedom him again. And just keep healing through this damage. Freedom myself. Judge this guy, run away. Okay, but I don't want to get out of range of my friend, my teammate here. Go in Divine Protection here, and I'm a little bit in trouble. So my shield procced, right, but I'm stunned, so I'm going to go ahead and bubble here, just to be completely safe. And I'll stun the healer while I'm safe. And now they're switching to my rogue, but they will probably switch back to me. I got kicked there, which is really bad. I have big heal now, so I'll use that. Get an announce going. Got kicked again. Alright, so I'm gonna hand of protection myself because he's all physical damage, and I already have my bubble on cooldown. He's gonna clone me because I can't do anything, and it kind of waits out the duration. Yeah, so Holy Shock on cooldown. I have stun up, so I'm gonna stun the healer, who my buddy is trying to go on. Alright, I'm gonna Devotion Aura to make sure I don't get interrupted here. It's really important because I need to pick him up. PvP Trinket that stun, and then try to heal through. Although I think he may end up dying here. Denounce the DPS. Alright, I see he uses interrupt. I hand of sacrifice because he's taking so much damage that I can't quite keep up. And then I'll just stun the DPS, kind of peel off the damage. Alright, got kicked. Cyclone, and he'll probably die here. So that's basically how you Holy Pally in arenas. Go ahead and leave this. And that will do it for this Holy Pally video. If you guys like the video, feel free to comment, like it. If you have any suggestions, you're welcome to put them down in the comment box. Let me know if it was awful, but I'm always open to improving. It's the first video I've made, and I hope you guys liked it. And I will be trying to do more videos like this in both World of Warcraft, other games, and just bring content that can help people and enjoy the game more. So thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time.